I think, therefore I am. But I'm thinking all the time, and I don't know who I am. Am I? Are you? I'm in the middle of nowhere, and it's a good place to be. Welcome to Just Nowhere with Dr. Samuel Zinner.
Hello everybody, welcome to Just Nowhere. This is Dr. Samuel Zinner in the mountain village of Aula, Tuscany, Italy. I recently saw a brief YouTube video by Robert Stowe called The Journey of the Brass Plate. And he gave me permission to give you some excerpts here, right, from his video, The Journey of the Brass Plate. It's a brass plate that he came across and wondered what it was. Had looked like what were Stars of David to him. He took it to an antique expert who couldn't tell him much about the artifact. The expert told him, well, there must be someone on this planet who can tell you by looking at it right away, oh, I know what that is. And that's me. I immediately recognized the provenance, the origin, and the meaning of this enigmatic brass plate. All right, so I'm going to give you some excerpts from Robert Stowe's video, The Journey of the Brass Plate, and then we're going to be talking with Robert about his brass plate and about his three books, and the fourth one that he's just completed. Now, we may wonder, why are we talking about a brass plate on Just Nowhere? Well, as you know, I'm presently co-editing a couple volumes with the first chapters by Noam Chomsky, right, on the origins of language and number. And these types of brass plates are often very difficult to interpret. They often have very enigmatic texts. And in the second book, we have various scholars writing on different types of structures, patterns, encryptions, various forms of language, right, in various spiritual traditions, including Jewish Kabbalah, Islamic Sufism, Zoroastrianism, etc. And so the brass plates are, I think, a good example, right, of application of language, application of structure and patterning in the art. So art is also relevant, right, for not only language, but also number and the application of number. And number being basically interval and pattern and structure. And so without further ado, let's go to some of the parts of the journey of the brass plate. Thank you.
This is the plate in question. All hand pounded. Beautiful design. Solid brass. One piece. We're going to find out what this is, how old it is, and hopefully how much it's worth. Hello everybody, this is going to be a bit of a different video. I'm sure you've already seen the video that Raylan and I went to an auction. We bought, I think we spent $6 on a bunch of different stuff, and in one of the flats we got this beautiful 12-inch brass plate. Let me show it to you. Look at that. Isn't that thing gorgeous? We got this in one of the flats that somebody gave us, and this thing is absolutely beautiful. It's all hand hammered, all from one piece of brass. You can see this is all one piece of brass, and it was all hand hammered into the shape. All the pattern on the other side is through the back, and it's just got this gorgeous, gorgeous, intricate detail on the front of it. Well, the problem is you got the Star of David 8 times, and we've been trying to figure out what kind of plate this is. So of course I did the smart thing. I followed the advice of Tracy Cakes and her flippin' side, and I Google imaged it, and I came up with about 400 different results, all leading in different directions. So I've tried to narrow it down. I went with the Star of David aspect and thought about the Jewish church, but I contacted the Jewish synagogue, and guess what? There's no Jewish writing on it. Therefore, it's not anything that's Jewish that they know of. But they want me to bring it in, and they want to see it and get a better look at it. What they suggested is that I go to the Hindu temple. So I've got to go there as well. I'm going to go to the Hindu temple, and I'm going to go to the Jewish synagogue on the same day, hopefully soon. I took it to an antique dealer, and he is an expert, and he said that he's an expert in all things antique, and he has never seen anything this magnificent. If any of you have an idea of what this is, if I don't find out what it is, let me know, because it is absolutely gorgeous. I'm at a loss for words, but I am going to definitely take you along with me on this journey. I've talked to my brother. My brother, he's completely in awe, and one of my good friends, he's like, wow, that's a beautiful piece, but nobody can tell me what it is. So yeah, we got a surprise for you, and we're meeting up with somebody who is an antiques expert, and hopefully he can tell us what's going on. So we'll see when we get there. All right, everybody, we came inside, and we're here with Peter, and Peter's taking a look at my tray here. What do you think, Peter?
What do I think? I don't know. I'm puzzled, my friend. I'm puzzled. Definitely very unique piece. It's old. There's no question about it. I mean, there's so much handwork that went to this. You know, this is all done by hand. This is probably late 1800s. I'm thinking maybe early 1900s. So it's a definitely older piece, but it could be even older. What boggles me here a little bit, that you know, the little bit of research that I did on this, I see a Star of David here, right? Mm-hmm. In a few different spots on this tray. This is definitely like a tea serving tray, somewhere from Middle East. Definitely kind of Persian, but it could be any of these regions. But the only thing that kind of boggles me, why there is, you know,
the Star of David.
Star of David, but there's no religious writing or anything on it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, on these different stars here, there's some different indication of some kind of, I don't even know what that is. I thought for a second some kind of animal right in the middle somewhere there, but I don't think it is when I looked at it with the loop. It boggles me. I mean, it's a beautiful piece. I mean, this is not a 10-minute job.
Yeah.
Somebody sat for hours and hours and hours making this. Somebody somewhere has got one very similar sitting
Yeah.
on their table, and they're gonna go, yes, I know exactly what that is. You know, it might take some time. It won't happen overnight because it's a very unique piece. But I think that's the best way to search, because I really don't know anybody who's into that stuff. I honestly don't.
No, that's fine.
It's a tough one, man. It's a great find, though.
Well, I appreciate you taking your time. Thank you so much for looking at it.
You got it, man.
Thank you. Well, that was a whole bunch of fun. Peter had no clue. So we're right back where we started. But he led us in a few different directions. We're going to go probably head to the Jewish synagogue, and then we're going to see what happens from there. Maybe see if we can find some antique dealers, or possibly hit up Facebook. So we're going to try. Did you have fun, Raylan?
I did.
You learn anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, learned a lot, and Peter's such an awesome guy. So yeah, we're going to get back on the road. So I went to the synagogue, and they're clueless as well. And of course I couldn't film because out of respect to them, I'm not going to. But yeah, so I don't know where to go next. So I went to the synagogue and showed them the plate. They took a picture of it because nobody was in to be able to take a look at it. And they took a picture, took my number, and I just got a phone call. They say it's Middle Eastern, but it is definitely not a Jewish plate other than the Star of David on it. And it's definitely Middle Eastern, but they're not exactly sure where from, and they're not exactly sure how old it is. So we're definitely leading down the Middle Eastern path, but other than that, I still don't have a clue. So the journey continues. Okay, so I've come to the consensus after going to about, I think it was 9 different antique dealers, two of which were experts in all things antique. Going to see Peter, Craigslist Hunter, talking to several different Facebook chats, different groups, and also Helen, one of my YouTube contacts, Tracy Cakes and her Flippin' Side, my brother, a few of my friends who dabble in a lot of antiques, and quite a few people from the region. We have come to the conclusion that this beautiful brass tray is a Middle Eastern, late 18 to early 1900s tea serving tray. And that seems to be the consensus. We cannot pinpoint to a country because a lot of the countries do the exact same style of work. But let me show you this thing. I haven't really done a really good close-up, I guess. I don't know. But you can see it's got the Star of David. Oh, and I forgot to say that we also talked to 2 different synagogues. Yeah, so, but anyway, this thing has been all over the place, just trying to find out what it is. I just want to thank everybody for going on the journey with me, and hope you appreciate it. See you next, can't even talk. See you next time. Thanks for watching.
Robert took the item to a couple of synagogues, and they rightly told him, well, there's no Hebrew writing on it, and we would expect that, right? So the stars there are not necessarily stars of David. Well, in fact, as I'll be able to show you now, the stars are the seal of Solomon, or the Khatim Suleiman in Arabic. And all right, so here's what the plate looks like. And let's look at a detail. There's 2 types of these stars. There's this one here, right? And the larger one has a star and then a circle in the middle. Now, sort of somewhat amusingly, but that's all right. The antique dealer, the antique expert, told Robert that he thought he was seeing, the antique expert thought he was seeing animals here, whereas in fact this is Arabic writing, right? And so, looking at this, I know the antique dealer then told Robert, I can't give you any more information on this, but I can tell you there must be someone on this planet who, when they look at this, they would be able to tell you, oh, I know exactly what this is. Oh, that someone is me. All right, now, so what are these images? Where do they come from? What do they mean? Well, here we go. The smaller stars are this. They're a depiction of the Falus coin of Morocco, which is issued from 1672 to 1901. Right, and this is taken from the image from Wikipedia. So here's the license that I'm required to show you. And the larger image on the plate is based on this, which is a Moroccan silver dirham, which these were issued from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. Right, and so I would say that the Robert's brass plate can be dated to probably 1800s to about 1900, thereabout. And so now here we give a nice synoptic view of both images from the plate. Here's the larger star with the circle in it, and the smaller one, and the corresponding Moroccan coin. So definitely this plate with 100% certainty can be traced to Morocco, and less certainly, but still confidently, sometime in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Wow, it's been quite a day here. And I just got through doing the dishes. Let's see. Let's see. All right, so let's see how we're going to do this, right? So we're going to have excerpts from your video, right? Because I think that was really cool. I love those. I can't give you the titles of them, but I watched them over here in Italy. The shows where people go around thrifting, basically. There's, you may know them better than I do, but there's a show I really love there's two Brits, right, driving around in a truck and throughout Britain. Sometimes they go into Italy, right, and getting antiques for their home interior design antique store.
Okay.
I really love that. And of course, there's the what is it, the Antique Roadshow
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So I really liked what you did. Is very simple, right? You tell people what the this brass plate is, where you got it, and then you show them the image. Then right, the next scene, which is really nice. It's just not you there sitting for 20 minutes talking. You actually go to the antique shop, right, and give some interview. It's really cool, right? It's got the
Yeah.
makings of a nice 30-minute episode on television, really.
Yeah, the pawn shop. Well, I went to several different antique. I went plenty of places before I actually went to the guy who's supposed to be basically an expert. That he's actually is a pawn shop, and he's actually a YouTuber as well. And that's why I went to him, because he actually showed up at my house. He drove. It's like an hour and a half, almost 2 hour drive. He actually drove to my house
Wow.
to look at a bunch of stuff at one point. So I returned the favor and went out to him, and he was in love with this plate, because after I actually talked to
Yeah.
him and recorded, he was just telling me, "Oh my God, I want this plate." But he
It
didn't
is.
want to look up any
It
money
is.
because he didn't know how
It
much
is
it was worth.
It is a cool artifact. Any of those Moroccan plates, which is what they are, with those seals of Solomon, those stars, they're cool. I don't know how else to describe it. They're just awesome. And I lived in Morocco for 10 years,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so I never saw one of them, not one of
Wow.
them. And I've been all over there into what they call the souks, right? The markets, the open markets, like in Marrakesh. They have a huge open market. There's a lot of metalworks there, a lot of antiques. And in my 10 years there, I never saw any brass plate with, these phallus coin, these type star designs on them.
Wow.
And like we saw in that video I sent you, I would guess, that design was in fashion, right, and circulating and being copied by the different local shops throughout maybe the late 1700s to, the first couple decades of the 1900s, I think.
Wow, that's a pretty big span. But
Yeah, and but there's all types of these brass plates in Morocco.
yeah,
But these are older. The ones with these coins depicted on them are older. And
mine was actually at auction, and somebody else won it at the auction because she
uh,
wanted something else that was in that box, and I decided
uh-huh,
not to bid on it. And then
mhm,
she gave me it was a whole box of brass. And at the
uh-huh,
time, brass was 5 something a pound, and I'm like, woohoo, a 2 pound plate.
yeah,
I was gonna scrap it, and then my friend, I was talking to her because I was showing her
uh-huh,
some other stuff that I got from the auction. She's like, no, 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 no. Excuse me. She's like,
yeah,
that
yeah,
plate is awesome. So I got it, and that's what started the journey.
yeah.
I'm glad she showed me, because this has been a fun journey.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of, as you know, there are a lot of brass plates out there that you can
Hmm.
find when you go thrifting, but they're not that old, and they're sort of embossed, not hand
Not
engraved,
hand
right?
hammered. Yeah.
Right, and they're really not antiques. And actually, you lose money buying them if you want to buy them just for the weight,
Yeah.
of the copper or the brass. It's not worth it. It's it's
No.
it's a loss. But these types of plates, the type of plate that you got, these are not kitsch. These are antiques,
Yeah.
and they're cultural. Um, they're just absolutely cool. The kitsch brass plates that you can find everywhere, right, on YouTube, Etsy, all of those types of, are just not worth the postage.
Yeah.
or
They're like
any,
tinsel tea trays.
and they look, well, these are I'm talking about the ones that are like wall hangings, and so they're
Yeah.
embossed, and you really couldn't put a cup on them.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Uh,
They're tinsel tea trays.
yeah, and they just don't look cool,
No, they
right?
don't.
But these types of Moroccan brass plates are absolutely cool. I didn't talk about the significance, the meaning of this imagery right in that video because I'm getting old, right? I forgot.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. So after I finished it, it came to me. It says, all right. So these are Islamic, right, plates, because Morocco has been an Islamic country for a long time, but they've had a big Jewish minority for many, many, many centuries. Then, of course, the great majority left after the founding of the modern state of Israel, right, and immigrated to Israel. And so they're Islamic plates, but at the same time, right, those star coins, those Valus coins, right, it was one of the most common coins of the country. I mean, it's used by anyone who lives there. Right. Yeah. And so it's very likely that some of those plates, right, could have been made by Jews living there, right? Because metal workers are that way. They're going to make whatever they can make some money from, right? Because, hey, you got to pay the rent, you know?
Exactly.
Right. So that's like in ancient times, like we know there were Viking metal workers who made hammers of Thor, as well as Christian crosses, right? It's, you know, it's a business, right? And so some of these plates could have been made, you know, by Jewish metal workers in Morocco. And so they have an interesting history, but, you know, so why put this seal of Solomon on a national coin? Well, the idea was probably, it's like, well, maybe God will protect the national economy, right, and the national coinage, right, from disaster or whatever. So that's sort of the idea, I think, behind it. We're not totally sure why, but so it was probably, you know, it's a spiritual symbol, and of course a lot of Jews were living there, so that star, the seal of Solomon, right, is also meaningful to Jews as well.
Yes.
Right. So
that's why I originally thought the plate was Jewish, because I saw the Star of Solomon and I recognized it right off the bat. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
And like I said, it could have been made by a Jew, even though it's the best way to describe it would be it's Moroccan. It's national Moroccan, right? Those are two types of coins there that are being depicted on your plate. And so, you know, Jews and Muslims lived there. Jews and Muslims could have used it. Now, so what were they used for? As far as I know, two things, as you know, right? These are used for like tea time, but some of them, you know, like here, I'm going to have to edit me moving my camera over here. But this will be part of my introduction I add later, because, you know, this is my usual setting here. And you notice I have a brass plate.
Yes.
An antique. Hey, my wife got it from a traveling sales lady here in Tuscany Mountains for, I think it was €3.
Wow.
And here, let me see if this is clear enough for you. I got a pretty fancy, good camera. Oh, let's move it over there. But, right, is that clear enough?
Gorgeous.
Can you see the star? Yeah, so there's that seal of Solomon, right in the middle. And then there are two divine names with three mystical letters, right? So it's just absolutely cool.
Yeah.
You know, so
you've got the paisleys on there also, which are Persian design, which is different.
And that's this is Persian. You're right.
Okay.
Right. There you go. Hey, cool. Yeah. And so this particular plate, I don't see anyone having used it for tea time.
Yeah, it's too wobbly.
Yeah, well, but it's also because of the content on it. It's like these two divine names, the Seal of Solomon, and these three mystical letters in Arabic, Alif Lam Mim. And so it's more like, you know, maybe Christians would probably, like, you know, have the Our Father on the wall somewhere. So it would be like a blessing in the home. So there's two possibilities for these types of brass plates, right? Like the one you had. Okay. All right. So, and my guess is that it's actually more like something that was put on the wall to protect the home, right? give it divine
Okay.
protection, sort of like a prayer, in other words.
Very good.
Right. So it really doesn't look like something it really looks like a spiritual item, right? Instead
Okay.
of just a um, instead of just a tea plate, right? Which I think increases their monetary value, but also their cultural value, just as an
Yeah.
artifact, right? I think they're more important, right? So really neat thing there. Now let me ask you a question. If you don't have any for me, but if you have any, just throw them out there. But what's the coolest thing you've ever come across, quote unquote, thrifting,
Thrifting.
or
Um,
or auctions or whatever in your line of work?
this has got to be one of the top ones, believe it or not, just because of the story behind it.
Uh-huh.
But I actually bought a storage unit down when I lived in Florida,
Hmm.
and back this is before all the shows drove the prices up. You could get a unit, no more than 125 bucks
Yeah.
for a huge unit. I would get, 30 by 40s for 25 bucks
Yeah.
back in the day. But I got this one unit, and I didn't know that the two units next to it were common um, owner.
Hmm.
And I opened it, and they opened it up. I got it for $75. I remember because, that was my limit back in the day, was 75 bucks, and I got it.
All right.
The unit to my left went for 100. The unit to my right went for 125. So I'm in there digging, and it's antiques everywhere, beautiful antiques, and I'm moving them out and putting them on the truck and trailer and stuff like that. And in there, I found a coin collection, and
Wow.
it was massive. And
Wow.
what I got for it, yeah, it was worth a good 300,000. Um,
Wow.
but that's not what I sold it for, obviously. But I ended up selling it. So that was just amazing that I found this like several thousand coins, hundreds of
Mhm.
coins, and it was worth about 300 grand roughly. So that was the coolest find for me. But the gentleman next to me to my right, well, I'm sorry, the gentleman next to me to my left had been
Mhm.
doing storage units for a long time. He was
Mhm.
he and I would share some things if it was in my unit, it was in if they were common owners. So we would
Mhm.
share some things or swap and stuff like that. And he made out like a bandit. He made almost like $700,000 off of
Oh
his
man.
unit. And I'm like,
Wow.
wow, because he had just stuff I've never seen before or
Mhm.
since. Well, the gentleman to my right was his first time ever buying a storage unit. He was 67 years
Mhm.
old, had literally just retired the day
Mhm.
before. This was his first storage unit.
Wow.
And he said, "Excuse me, sir, you've been doing this for a while." And I said, "Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm in my 20s, but I've been doing it for quite a while."
Yeah.
And he said, "Can you tell me if I'm reading this right?" And he had all the antiques out, and
Yeah.
in there was a whole bunch of boxes that had one CT DIA, half CT DIA, and I'm like, what is the heck is going on? And then it said SAPH and EMRLD, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Uh,
He found $1.2 million in gemstones.
yeah. Wow.
So to be a part of that was really cool. And
Yeah.
I said, "So what are you going to do now that you're retired and you found $1.2 million?" He goes, "I'm going to go buy another storage unit."
Yeah.
Excuse
Wow.
me, things like that usually never happen.
Well,
But, you
yeah.
know, just to be a part of helping this guy on his first unit make $1 million, that was impressive to me.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, that
yeah,
is.
I come across a lot of stuff because, um, I buy storage units, I buy um, estates, I go
Mhm.
thrifting. So every little item has its own story. So I mean,
Sure. Sure.
I just got an estate not too long ago, and in
Mhm.
there, I guess the lady, the I don't know exactly how she got them, but she had over
Mhm.
400 copies of it, advanced reader copies of books.
Mhm.
So that's cool because these are books from 400 different authors before they were ever published.
Yeah, the galley
Read,
proofs.
but they're never been cracked open. I'm like, oh, so
Cool.
that was good. That's kind of cool. 'Cause I'm a reader and I collect books, and to have all the 400 different authors. That was the cool
Mhm.
part. So
Cool.
and some big name books too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've I've found a lot of books when I was younger. Found a lot of really cool books out in various places like eBay and others like that.
Hmm.
Just I picked up a few tricks of the trade back then, right? And that is
Hmm.
right. Search for common misspellings, because if something's
Oh yeah,
misspelled, no one's going to find it, right? So
exactly.
I found this 2-volume set of Homer, right, published in the 1700s for like
Wow.
$10, because no one else was. No one else knew it was up for auction because it was misspelled with 2 D's, right? The
Oh
Odyssey,
wow.
right? And so anyway, with if you
Well,
know the tricks of the trade, you can find little things like that. That was
I
pretty
actually
awesome.
used to collect antique novels and books. Um, so yeah, I had a huge collection, and I actually came across a first American edition of Moby Dick.
Wow,
That
that's
was a heck of a find. That actually got stolen from me.
wow. How much is
But
that worth? How much of that would that be worth?
about 15, 20,000 maybe,
Yeah, that's what I was
roughly.
guessing. Like I was thinking
In mint condition,
5,000,
and
but
this one was mint.
no,
I've
no.
had some really good books that actually my grandfather gave me a couple of really awesome ones that were 1906, signed by James Edwards, the Archbishop of Chicago at the time. So,
Wow.
and they were manuals of the Holy Catholic Church. I had a pair of those. Those were worth a lot of money because the fact that James Edwards had
Mhm.
signed them, he's the so. I've had some fun ones in my days. I was went to a thrift store and I bought Jane Eyre, a second edition print, which is actually more valuable than the first edition, because the second edition was the forward was written
Mhm.
by um, her pen name. So she
Ah,
wrote her own forward, but it was in her pen name, which is a male,
right.
which is a male name. I also found an what is it, 1897 copy of Little Women, and
Wow.
it's like they're 25 cents a piece. Usually hardcovers went for $1. I'm like 25 cents a piece. Why not? So I
Mhm.
got these books, and I got home and I dropped Little Women,
Yeah.
and the page fell out, and I'm like, son of a gun, that's not a page. There were 11 $50 bills in numerical sequence from
Mhm.
1939.
Wow.
Mint condition. So $550 inside of this book. And I'm like, woohoo, because it's Depression era. And they stick a lot of money in books. They would hide it because they didn't trust the bank. So I went back and bought all of the books from that estate and ended up with another $300. And I spent, I think, a total of like $20.
Wow.
So I took advantage of the system. I ain't gonna lie, but yeah, people don't look, and even to this day I still find money in books, especially Bibles. And
Mhm.
people's like, "Oh yeah, we know. I've never found it." You have to find an old Bible, and I sell a
Mhm.
lot of older Bibles. So
Mhm. Yeah. So if you yeah, if it's an older Bible, then the money in it is probably older, and then
yep.
therefore, valuable. Well, I don't have any stories, man, to get anywhere near any of that. But the only thing I can tell you is a story that I saw myself, at least part of it, but it involved my brother, right? So when we were pretty young, we were underground, right? We were in this building, and there was a trap door. This is back in the '60s.
Okay.
And so we went down there, and I was like in kindergarten, so it's my older brother. I found, really cool things like buffalo nickels, Indian head pennies, mercury dimes. He found a light bulb, and inside the light bulb was a piece of paper wrapped around the filament, and it's clearly you could see Thomas A. Edison. I mean, written with a pen.
Oh.
So eventually, we moved away from where this happened, and my brother wasn't quite old enough to have a license yet to drive, so he hitchhiked into town with the light bulb. He wanted to go sell it, some antique dealer or pawn shop. So he was sitting in the back of the car talking to the stranger, and he said, "Yeah, we've really gotten in this really really interesting conversation, right?" So anyway, so he gets into town, he gets out of the car, right, says bye, the car drives away, and then my brother realizes he left the light bulb in the car.
Oh no.
Yeah. Anyway, so the other day I sent him a news story. These Thomas Edison light bulbs had sold for 30 grand
Yeah.
uh, at an auction. Anyway,
Wow.
so that's still really nothing comparable to what you heard. That's really great. I was, I was really pleasantly surprised too when you told me that you just finished your fourth book. So
I
that
did.
I don't have any details on that, but you have three already up on Amazon, and of course I'll have links to those. Now, if it's all right with you, I'd like to ask you a question first about the invisible in plain sight.
Okay. The
First,
Invisible. Yeah.
yeah, could you just tell us what it is about?
It is a narrative nonfiction, so it is a true story about a man who spent a month living with the homeless, and he told their stories. And I actually did that. The story in the book takes place in Chicago. Lived with the homeless for a month, and I told their stories and how they became homeless and things like that. So
What's
that was.
the um, after this? I'll ask you a more positive question, but first, do, does something come to mind if I ask you what was the most heartbreaking story of all of those?
Um, there was several because being a veteran,
Hmm. All
because I
right.
served in the U.S. military. Um, Being a veteran, there was a gentleman who he was a Vietnam veteran,
Hmm.
and he had a lot of mental illness from the war.
Hmm. Yes.
And it just breaks my heart to see people suffer because
Sure.
they nowadays they're taking more steps with mental health issues
Hmm.
for the military,
Right.
and that is good because I've seen so many people that just they suffer because of their war does a lot of stuff to people. I mean, it really messes with your mind, and
Sure.
if you're not able to get past that or work through it, your whole life can suffer. And this gentleman, yeah, he took a beating during his life and had a lot of mental health issues because of it, and that just broke my heart.
Yeah.
Or to see children on the streets as well.
Yeah. What's the most? Was there? Well, this may sound very odd to you, but was there an inspiring story? I mean, despite the tragedy of it all, but was there something that was lifted the spirit
Oh
for
yeah, I
you?
mean, I learned so much from the people that were
Mhm.
living on the streets that it actually I became less materialistic. Number
Uh-huh.
one, but there was one young lady who was actually living on the streets with her kids, and
Hmm.
she was able to get off the streets and be able to provide a home for them and get go in the right direction. So
Uh-huh.
that's always positive. But
Yeah, wonderful. Well, the next book is Limousine Stories, and uh, can you tell us about that in a nutshell? What kind of a book is that?
it's a fictional story. I actually drove a limousine for a long time, and I
Oh,
actually in the military I drove a limousine, and none of the stories are true. It's
all right.
just, but they are examples of what can actually happen from different people I've talked to, different things
Sure.
I've experienced. So it's just a big conglomeration of stories, and it's about a guy who actually stumbled into a job as a limousine driver and then ended up making a business from it.
Mhm.
And it talks about his journey and his life and the situations that come across while driving a limousine. Some of them being very adult, others
Mhm.
being, drug substance abuse, and
Sure.
some of them are just really good stories about, weddings and things like that.
Yeah, it reminded me the basic technique that you're using in the book there reminded me of an Australian author whose name escapes me. He's of the younger generation, right? So he's just now making his name, but um, he wrote a book about, well, he was a writer. He got a migraine that lasted a year, so he couldn't
Ooh,
write for a year. So he got a job working on a train, right? And so
hmm,
his book is all about the stories that he heard from people on the train during that year. So his personal
wow.
stories. So it's the first thing that came to mind. But his are all true, but doesn't mean it's better. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes fiction can tell us more truth than real
Hmm.
life. You know,
There's a lot of, to every little bit of fiction, there's a lot of truth to them.
yeah. Well, like if you think of religion, like parables. right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the truth that comes through a parable or some kind of, story or fables, children's fables. I mean, those are the ways that we learn a lot of the, values that we have throughout life. I mean, and it's fiction, but hey, the truth it gives us is more powerful than, if someone sat us down and preached to us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, the third book is Exposed Emotions. I forget the subtitle, but tell us
Collection of
about that
poetry.
one. Yeah.
That's a collection of my poems. It's there's roughly 170 poems, 255 pages, so it's novel length book of poetry. And as a child, I used to love reading the what is it, The Window in the Attic, I believe it was. It's a collection of
Mhm,
poems, and I wanted to do something like that. Excuse me. So
mhm,
that's what that is. That's my tribute to, you know, my life's work of poetry. It's not even all of my poems, but there's 170 of them in there, and a wide variety of subjects, everything from love to family
mhm.
to, lost love, hope, and stuff like that. So,
Sure, sure. Great. Now, can I tease you or ask you to tease us? Are you willing to fill us in a little bit about what your fourth book that you just finished is going to be about?
the fourth book I just finished is actually a journal style. So it's written like a journal.
Cool.
So it's a man telling his life through his journal, and it's supposed to be published January 1st is when it's actually going to be published. So the very beginning of the year. And he just tells his life. It starts out, he's experiencing a divorce, and his friend told him to keep a journal. So he decided to do so. And
Mhm.
um, just his life up it starts in like 2000 and it goes all the way through 2022. So it's his life, 22 years of his life written down, and as he experiences it. And
Cool.
the people that have read it so far, so they could not put it down. They started reading and they were angry because they had other things they had to do, so they had to put it down. And then you'll need a box of tissues at the end.
All right. So, yeah, I'll have a link to your Amazon author page, right? So when that comes out, people can find it.
Yeah.
Now, may I give you a suggestion for your fifth book, what it should
What's
be about?
what's that?
I- I'll give you the title, The Journey of the Brass Plate.
There you go. There you go.
Just,
I actually might include that in one of my future books. I actually have 17 that I've already started years ago,
yeah.
and then I got into a slump and couldn't write for about 4 years. So I actually have 17 I've started, so I'm trying to finish those
Cool.
first.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be totally about something else. It could be totally fiction, but that's such a cool title. It's really catchy.
Thank you.
It
Thank you. I
make
appreciate
it
it.
make a good title for a book or a novel. And The Journey of the Brass Plate, I don't know, it sort of sounds like, um,
That just sparked an idea. Okay.
yeah,
So,
it could be really, a lot of mystery,
yep.
um, spiritual stuff thrown in there. Sort of like the 1001 Nights, right? Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that
That
out.
it actually sparked a really good an idea for me. So I will definitely keep that in mind.
Sure, sure, sure. All right. So, anyways, it's been great talking to you,
You as well.
and it's unique. This is not the usual thing that I do on this program. Like tomorrow or the next day after, excuse me, I'm going to be interviewing a German scholar who wrote a biography on Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton, right?
Oh,
But after that, it's going to be things like the world-renowned physicist George Ellis, right, who's a co-author with Stephen Hawking, and I have
mm-hmm.
a lot of scholars on. But I've wanted to branch out and have find explorers, discoverers, people like you, thrift people who make a living with, buying. Collectibles, antiques, or whatever, and branching out, because the inspiration behind it, right, is well, of course, this show is called Just Nowhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I chose Just Nowhere, I mean, if you listen to that phrase, it's like I can talk about anything I want to. I can have anyone on a program like that, because it's just nowhere, which means anywhere, right?
Exactly.
And so I'm really really pleased, that you were willing to talk with me and come on the show. So all right, so I guess we should probably wrap it up there,
All
unless
right.
you have any more questions.
Well, you had
Um,
mentioned that you're writing a book as well.
oh yeah, that's yeah, always behind schedule. Yeah, this month is sort of like the deadline, but it's going to have to be delayed. But that's normal. But it's about language and numbers, the origin of language and numbers.
Oh,
So and the origins and applications, right? So that allows us to include things like music, architecture, anything, right? So
hmm.
um, number is right really easily goes into math, which is really the study of structure and pattern. So
Yeah.
anything that has structure and pattern, we deal with it. We got a really
Hmm.
good scholar wrote a chapter on structures and encryptions, musical encryptions in Johann Sebastian Bach's music,
Hmm.
right? So so it's just not really scientific. It is scientific, but we just don't have like chapters on scientific theories on the origin of language, right?
Yeah.
We have other really interesting stuff about architecture, so-called rock art, prehistoric rock art, and
Okay.
you
See
know
that I find that fascinating.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and film also, right? So we we have two chapters on film, right? Because metaphorically speaking, we talk about the language of film, right?
Yeah.
But it's and but I'm really interested in like sci-fi, and some sci-fi films in particular really do bring up this issue of language and communication. You know, like how would we be able to communicate with a truly alien intelligence? Or would we even know it if we saw it right in front of our face? It would be so strange and so different. And so movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey or Solaris, um, like Solaris is really cool on that because, right, the alien there, and this was an old Soviet film, it was remade
Hmm.
with George Clooney.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and so the alien intelligence there is that weird ocean on that
Hmm.
planet that's moving around, and it's communicating through their dreams and their
Hmm.
memories, right? And it creates like humans that they knew, that come to them walking down the halls of the spaceship, right? And
Hmm.
so that's a really really interesting way to think about, would we even know an alien intelligence, right? If it becomes, in that scenario we would just all be thinking, we're going insane with hallucinations. Maybe it's some radiation or something from the planet that's affecting our minds. And we have no hope. When in fact it's just it's some kind of sentient ocean trying to talk, and it's
Have you ever
in
seen
its
the
way.
movie? Have you ever seen the movie Sphere?
Sphere. I think I did.
That is an awesome movie. It's about
4 or
alien
5 years ago.
technology that comes from the U.S. Definitely interesting movie. It's I don't want to say Dustin Hoffman and Sam Jackson. It's amazing movie. It's called Sphere.
Desert places sort of like create a lot of good sci-fi writing
Oh yeah.
talent, I think. Right. I grew up in the desert, and Mojave Desert in California, right, and then went off to university. Then eventually ended up spending a decade, as I told you, in Morocco. Then I ended up here in
Wow.
Tuscany. I think this is where I'm pretty well settled. But if I were a rich man, right, my ideal is like, yeah, that where I grew up in the desert is so
Mhm.
cool. And well, we could really get into stories there because I lived. It's a big family. I had half sisters and half brothers as well as full siblings, right? So it's a big family out in the desert, not too far from. Now, stop me if you don't know these things I'm talking about. So we'd get on top of the barn and we could see Skunk Works, Lockheed Martin, right? About 7 miles in the distance, right? And then Edwards Air Force Base even further across. But I mean, it's just wild stuff in the sky. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Weird stuff, which is normal, right? The weird stuff is being developed, and but it just grew up seeing mind-boggling stuff in the sky, right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
I think that wasn't too far actually from where it's just down about a 20-minute drive from there is Pear Blossom, and that's where Steven Spielberg used to go at night, and he would park there and get on his back, lay down on his back on his car and look up at the sky, right, to sort
Mm-hmm.
of get inspiration for sci-fi ideas. And
Mm-hmm.
it scared the living crap out of him, he said. And, yeah.
Yep, and that's where he actually got the I can't even remember the name of the movie. One of my Close Encounters of the Third Kind is actually how he was
That's right.
inspired.
That's right. That's the one I'm thinking of. There was also, of course, E.T.
E.T. Yep.
Yeah, and I got to know. I had no idea about this, but one of my friends that I've had through the years became a good friend of mine. And one day she told me, "Yeah, I'm the sister of, the little boy that Spielberg hired and put in the E.T. suit. Right? It has no legs because her brother was
Yeah.
born without legs.
Oh wow.
Right, and so he was the, I don't know what you call it, the actor, or
Yeah.
he was the little boy they put in there, right, to be able to move, the ET. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
But that was in California too, and that was a good friend. One time we went out together with a few other friends to this, I don't know what to call it, but I think you would probably enjoy this. And I don't know, what would you call this, right? So we're in California, or out on the outskirts of a town, and there's this huge statue, probably 50 feet tall, of Paul Bunyan, and it's vintage. And you go in there, and it's free, and you just walk around like this acre of all sorts of mind-boggling vintage stuff from movies. And there's a teepee there, bathtubs from movie stars, right, from many ages ago. And it's just totally cool.
Hang on. Hush.
I'm not sure what a place like that is called.
I don't know, but
you have any idea?
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's like well, who was it?
Memorabilia, just a movie memorabilia or a movie buff spot,
And other stuff too. Like I said, the main attraction there is like this 50-foot tall Paul Bunyan, right? So it's like,
I get to see that when I go to Wisconsin Dells, because we go to Paul Bunyan's, which is a restaurant.
That's probably where this came from. It's probably like a chain, maybe, there in California. And it's old. The owner of it is an old retired Navy man, right? I forget what his rank was, right? But he was a sailor type, right? So just really colorful. But that's the type of experience I think it's really good for children to have, not just adults, but really children need that. So that reminds me of one of the videos you have up on your YouTube channel, right? Secret tourist spots.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah. So anyway, the listeners, right, can look on your YouTube channel. I'll have the link there for that and many other cool things. I mean, I know you're into thrifting and buying things like this, but also antique cars, motorcycles. It's real. It's a very rich life that you seem to be living there.
Definitely eclectic, that's for sure.
Eclectic. Animals. Really important thing. I was actually raised on a desert farm, so I know all about the animals. It's really good for children to be exposed to that.
Speak about animals.
There they are. There they are. There they are. Very cool. All right. Well, we better bring this to a close here. I'm sure you have a lot of work to do, and
very busy day ahead to me.
Yes.
It's snowing, so I got to get out there and put salt down because it's
of course
salt, and then my wife has a package of bugs coming in that can't freeze.
Right.
So, and I think that's who just the mailman came and picked up a package I sold.
Sure.
So
yeah. All right. Well, all best wishes All success I wish you, and let's stay in touch.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it was fun.
Yes,
a
it was.
Pleasure. All right.
All right. You too.
If you enjoyed the program, please consider supporting this channel with a donation through Patreon or PayPal. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.